In the iron halls of the Galactic War Academy orbiting Ceres Cadet, Lila Meyer sat alone at the edge of the mess deck, her tray untouched, her eyes fixed on the floor like she was counting every seam in the metal beneath her boots around her. The other cadets laughed and shouted, their voices sharp with pride and rivalry. They wore their uniforms like armor-polished boots, gleaming insignias bright on their shoulders. Lila wore hers, like a shadow-faded gray fabric frayed at the cuffs too, big for her narrow frame. She never spoke unless called upon, never joined drills unless forced, and never looked anyone in the eye. The Academy was the finest military school in human space, built into the hollowed core of a captured asteroid. Its corridors lined with relics of past wars, and its training fields filled with the best and brightest of Earth's colonies. Every year only 100 were chosen from millions, and of those only 10 would earn the title of Apex Warrior. The rest would become officers, pilots, or cannon fodder depending on how the stars turn. Lila had been a mistake. They said a clerical error, or maybe a pity pick, because no one could figure out why she was there. She scored average on entry tests, showed no talent in combat sims, and had no family name to back her up. She came from nowhere. A dead colony on the fringe wiped out years ago with no records left behind except a single name and a birth stamp that barely passed verification torn the top. Cadet, an heir to a corporate war dynasty, called her Ghost because she moved without sound and left no trace. Kale, the brute with cybernetic arms, called her Whisper because she never raised her voice, and the others just laughed and followed along. They shoved her in the halls, tripped her during marches, and once locked her in a decompression locker for 3 hours, just to see if she'd scream. She didn't. But what none of them knew was where Lila went at night, after lights out, when the Academy slept and the drones patrolled the upper decks. Lila slipped through a service hatch behind the laundry bay, a place no one ever checked. She climbed down rusted ladders through forgotten maintenance tunnels until she reached level -9A. Sealed sector marked obsolete and biohazardous. The door there was warped and scorched, but it opened for her, a soft click, like it remembered her voice. Inside, the air was thick and warm, smelling of ozone and something older like stone and starlight. The chamber was vast, its walls covered in strange glyphs that pulsed faintly in the dark. At the center, coiled on a raised dais of black stone, lay Nirash. Was not a pet, not really. Nira was a dragon. Her scales shimmered like liquid night, shifting between deep violet and onyx depending on the light. Her wings, folded tight against her back, were veined with silver, and her eyes glowed with a soft amber light that never blinked too long. She was smaller than the dragons of old myths, no bigger than a ground vehicle, but her presence filled the room like gravity itself had bent to hold her. Lila sat beside her and rested her head against Nira's side. The dragon's warmth seeped into her bones, and for the first time all day she breathed. Easy. You let them push you again. Nira's voice came not through sound but through thought, low and smooth like wind through ancient trees. Lila closed her eyes. I have to. Why? Because if I fight back, they'll ask questions, and questions lead to scans, and scans lead to the truth. The truth is your strength. The truth is I'm not like them, Lila whispered in her mind. And if they find out what I am, what we are, they'll burn this place to the ground. Nira exhaled a slow curl of smoke that shimmered. With tiny sparks, they fear what they do not understand, but fear can be broken. Not here, not yet. The dragon shifted her massive head until her eye met Lila's. You are elven blood. Even if your skin looks human, even if your voice sounds soft, your bones remember the old songs your blood sings. With starlight you carry the mark. Lila touched the glyph on her wrist. A faint silver line shaped like a spiral. It glowed only when she was near Nira, or when danger was close. It had been there since birth, a brand from a dead world, a world that once ruled the void with grace and fire before humans crawled out of their mood. You know, she said, but knowing doesn't stop the fists or the names or the way they look at me like I'm broken. You are not broken. You are waiting for what? For the moment they go too far. Lila didn't answer. She just leaned closer and listened to the slow, steady beat of Nira's heart. A rhythm older than empires. Back in the academy, morning came with a blaring horn and stomping boots. Lila returned before dawn, slipping through the vents like smoke. She washed the scent of ozone from her skin and smoothed her uniform, but she couldn't hide the tiredness in her eyes or the way her hands trembled slightly from lack of sleep in the training yard. The cadets formed ranks under the red glare of Ceres' distant son instructor Voss, a grizzled veteran with a bionic eye and a voice like grinding steel paced before them. Today, he said, is war trial prep. You will face live drones, not sims, no safeties. If you die, you die. A murmur ran through the group, but most grinned. This was what they trained for. Glory danger proof, they were apex material. Illa stood at the back, her hands clasped behind her back. Her expression. Blankva stopped in front of Torin. You first. Torin stepped forward with a smirk, activated his pulse gauntlets, and strode into the arena. Drones rose from the ground like angry hornets firing stun rounds and plasma bursts. He moved like lightning, weaving through fire, disarming drones with brutal efficiency. In under 2 minutes, the field was silent and smoking. He bowed to applause. Kyle went next, smashing through drones with raw strength, laughing as he ripped one in half. One by one, they proved themselves until only Lila remained. Voss sighed. You again. Meyer stepped up. She walked forward, slow and quiet. The other cadets snickered. Watch her faint. Bet she trips over her own boots. Storin crossed his arms. Yeah, go on, Ghost, show us how to run away. Lila entered the arena, the gate sealed behind her. The drones activated instantly, but instead of attacking, they hovered uncertain, their sensors flickering as if confused. Voss frowned. What's this? Then Lila moved. Not fast, not flashy, just precise. She sidestepped. A stun bolt reached out and tapped a drone on its core node. It powered down and dropped to the ground. She did it again and again, each touch disabling a machine without violence. In 30 seconds, the arena was still silence. Then Torin laughed. It's rigged. Voss checked his tablet. No, it's not. Lila walked out without a word. That night the mocking got worse. They cornered her in the barracks. Torin shoved her against a locker, his face inches from hers. You think that little trick makes you one of us? You're a glitch, a mistake. You don't belong here. Lila said nothing. Kale grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. You hear me? Whisper still. She stayed silent. Torin leaned closer. If you're so special, why don't you prove it? Because Lila thought, but did not say, because when I do, you won't be standing. She endured the shoves, the names, the laughter until they grew bored and left. Alone again, she slipped down to level -9. Naira waited. They pushed again. The dragon said, yes, and you held back. I always do. Not forever. No, Lila said softly. Not forever. Above them, the academy hummed with arrogance. Below, in the dark, something ancient stirred, ready to rise when the time came. And the time was coming soon. The academy buzzed with news of the final war trial, only 3 days away. Every corridor echoed with talk of glory and victory. Cadets polished their gear, memorized battle protocols, and bragged about how they would dominate the field. The trial was the last test before graduation. A live combat simulation held on the shattered moon of Keras 7. A graveyard of old warships and broken satellites turned into the most brutal training ground in human space. Only those who survived and excelled would earn the title of Apex Warrior, a rank that opened doors to elite fleets, command posts, and fame across the colonies. Torin had already ordered a custom insignia for his uniform. Kale had bets running on how many drones he would destroy in under a minute even. The instructor spoke of them as if they were already legends. Lila Meyer registered for the trial quietly as always. No fanfare, no announcement. Just a single line added to the roster that no one noticed until roll call, when instructor Voss read her name aloud. The room fell silent, then burst into laughter. You're joking, Voss said, frowning at his tablet. Lila stood at attention, her eyes forward, her voice calm. No, Serterin smirked. Let her go. She'll be good for target practice. Voss hesitated, but academy rules were clear. Any cadet in good standing could enter, and Lila had passed every test, even if barely. So he nodded. Fine, Meyer. You're in that night. The barracks emptied as cadets gathered in the rec hall to watch past trial. Footage on the big screen, they cheered at explosions, laughed at failures, and toasted their own futures. Lila stayed behind, sitting on her bunk, tracing the silver spiral on her wrist. It pulsed faintly, warm like a heartbeat. Soft knock came at the door. She didn't answer, but it opened anyway. It was Cadet May, a quiet girl from engineering rarely seen outside the tech labs. She held a small device in her hand. They're all talking about you, she said softly. Lila looked up. May said, you don't have to go in there. It's not just drones this year. They upgraded the field, added real weapons, real danger. I know, Lila said. Then why? Because I have to. May hesitated, then stepped closer. They think you're weak. They don't see what I see. What's that? You don't flinch, Lila. You never panic even when Torrin shoved you into that locker last month. You just waited like you knew it would. And Lila said nothing. May placed the device on the bunk. A signal jammer, small and illegal, modified to disrupt. Drone targeting for a few seconds, not much, but enough to give someone an edge. I don't want anything in return, Maze whispered. Just don't die. She left before Lila could respond, later that night. Lila descended to level -9. The air grew warmer. With every step, the glyphs on the walls glowing brighter as if welcoming her. Naira waited coiled on the dais, her amber eyes open and watchful. You are going to the trial, the dragon sent through Thoughty. As they will try to break you. They already have. Then, why go? Because hiding won't stop them. Lila sat beside Naira and leaned against her scaled side. If I win, they'll have to see me. If I lose, they'll forget me either way. It ends there. Naira exhaled a slow curl of shimmering smoke. You are not just human, Lila. Your blood carries the old fire. The elven star singers bound their souls to dragons like me. We were guardians of balance, not weapons, but humans see only power. I know. Do they know what you are? No, and I can't let them find out, not yet. The dragon lowered her head until her eye met Lila's. Then they do not know what I am either. Lila smiled faintly for the first time in weeks. Above ground, the academy prepared the trial. Field engineers deployed new battleforms, drones with plasma cutters and sonic emitters. Others carried neural scramblers designed to overload a cadet's implants and leave them helpless. The field itself was rigged with traps, gravity wells, hidden turrets, and zones of total signal blackout. Instructor Voss reviewed the setup with the command staff. This is overkill, one officer said. Voss shrugged. The high command wants to see who can handle real war, not games, but cadets could die. Or kills. Meanwhile, Torrin and Kale trained non-stop in the sim pods, pushing their scores higher each time they barely slept, fueled by arrogance and adrenaline. Lila trained too, but not in the sims. In the lower decks, she moved through empty corridors, practicing forms her mother once taught her, steps older than human history. Her hands traced patterns in the air that left faint trails of silver light only visible to Nirayu. Move like water, the dragon observed. Water cuts stone. Ease on the eve of the trial. The entire academy gathered in the launch bay. Cadets suited up in light combat armor. Their helmets sealed, their weapons locked and loaded. Instructors gave final briefings and medics stood by with trauma. Kit's Lila wore the standard issue gear, but underneath her uniform, the glyph on her wrist glowed steadily. May passed by and gave her a small nod. Torrin saw it and sneered, making friends with the tech rats. Now Ghost Lila didn't reply. The shuttles lifted off, carrying the cadets to Kiris. 7. The moon hung in the void like a broken skull, its surface pocked with craters and twisted metal. The battlefield awaited. As the shuttle descended, Lila closed her eyes. Nira's voice echoed in her mind. They do not know what you carry. They do not know what I am. Lila opened her eyes and watched the ruined moon grow larger. Soon, they would know. Soon it would all change. The shuttle touched down, dust swirling around its landing struts. The ramp lowered and the cadets stepped onto the battlefield. Wind howled through the wreckage, carrying the scent of rust and ozone. Instructor Voss's voice crackled over comms. Trial begins in 10 minutes, last one standing. Windstorm activated his gauntlets and grinned at Lila. You won't last 10 seconds. Lila adjusted her gloves and walked forward into the ruins. Somewhere deep below the moon's surface, something stirred. Not a machine, not a beast, but a presence ancient and waiting. The trial was about to begin, but it would not end as they expected. The battlefield stretched across the broken surface of Karis 7, a wasteland of twisted hulls, shattered satellites, and jagged rock under a sky choked with dust. The sun barely pierced through, casting long shadows that moved like living things. The air tasted of metal, and old fire cadets spread out immediately, forming pairs or small squads. Torrin and Kale led the largest group, their armor gleaming, their weapons humming with charge. Lila walked alone, stepping over debris, her boots silent. On the cracked ground, she moved like she belonged to the ruins, not the war instructor. Voss's voice boomed over the comms. Trial begins. Instantly, drones rose from hidden compartments in the ground, their optics glowing red. They fired stun rounds, and sonic pulses meant to disorient, not kill the cadets, returned fire with training rifles set to non-lethal. But the chaos was real. Shouts echoed across the field as cadets dodged, rolled, and took cover. Torin charged forward, smashing drones with his gauntlets laughing as sparks flew. Kale tore one apart with his bare hands, roaring like a beast. Lila stayed near the edge of the field watching. Then something changed. A deep hum vibrated through the ground. Not from the drones, but from below, the moon itself. The sky flickered like a faulty screen, and the comms crackled with static. Voss's voice cut through, sharp and urgent. All units hold fire, system breach detected. But it was too late, and Torin's shot struck a drone that exploded not with smoke but with blue fire, real plasma, the kind that melted armor and flesh alike. A cadet screamed as his leg vanished in a flash of light. Real weapons are live. Someone shouted. Panic spread. Drones switched modes, their red optics turning white, firing live rounds now. The battlefield became a slaughterhouse. Cadets scrambled for real cover. Not training cover. Screams filled the air as bodies dropped. Lila didn't move. She stood in the open as plasma bolts whizzed past her. None touched her. They curved away like repelled by an unseen force. Torin saw her and his eyes narrowed. He raised his railgun. Not the training version. The real one he'd smuggled in for show. "You're cheating, Ghost," he yelled over the noise. Lila turned. To him, her eyes calm. Then the ground beneath her cracked. Not from an explosion, but from something rising. Stone split, metal groaned, and a massive shape emerged from the moon's crust. Black scales catching the dim light, wings unfolding like storm. Clouds near arose, not as a pet, not as a myth, but as a war dragon of the old elven empires. Her amber eyes burned with ancient fire. Her breath curled in the air, shimmering with heat. Silence fell. Even the drones paused, as if their programming couldn't comprehend what they saw. Torin lowered his weapon slightly, his face pale. "What is that?" Lila stepped toward Naira and placed a hand on the dragon's snout. The glyph on her wrist blazed silver light, spreading up her arms. "He is my sister," Lila said softly, but everyone heard. Kale raised his weapon, shaking. "This is a trick, some kind of hologram." Naira exhaled. A wave of heat rolled across the field. Not fire, but pure energy. It washed over the cadets, knocking them off their feet, frying their weapons and implants without burning skin. It was a display of control, not destruction. Lila walked forward, Naira at her side. The remaining cadets backed away. Some dropped their weapons, others froze in place. Voss's voice returned frantic. "Meyer, stand down. That's a xenotech entity. You are in violation of Galactic Code 7. Lila didn't stop. "You don't understand," she said. And for the first time, her voice carried weight like stone rolling down a mountain. They never saw her coming because they never looked. Torin raised his railgun again. "I won't let some freak ruin this." He fired. The slug left the barrel at hypersonic speed, aimed straight at Lila's chest, but it never reached her. Naira moved faster than sight. Her tail flicked and the slug vaporized midair. The shockwave knocked Torin off his feet. Lila kept walking. "You think this is about winning a trial?" she said to the fallen cadets. "This was never a test for you. It was a test for me to see if I could still hold back." She stopped in the center of the field and raised her hand. The glyph on her wrist pulsed and the runes around them began to glow. Faint elven runes etched into the moon's surface lit up one by one, forming a massive circle. "This place isn't just a graveyard," she said. "It's a tomb and a cradle. The old ones built it to sleep." Tuwakel scrambled to his feet. "You're insane." "No," Lila said. "I'm awake then." She moved, not with rage, not with hate, but with terrifying grace. She crossed the distance to Torin in a blink, disarmed him with a twist, shattered his armor with a single palm strike, and left him kneeling in the dust. Gasping for air, next was Kale. She dodged his wild swing, caught his cybernetic arm, and with a sharp twist disabled the power core. It sparked and died on. By one, she faced the elite, not to kill but to break their pride. Their arrogance, their belief that strength was only muscle and fire. They fell not from wounds, but from shame. Above the moon, the Academy command ship scrambled fighters, but their systems failed the moment they entered the glowing circle. The elven tech had awakened, and it recognized Lila as its air instructor. Voss stood at the edge of the field weapon, lowered his face unreadable. Why, he asked simply. Because you taught us war, he said, but you forgot the first rule: never mock the quiet ones. Leela looked at him, then at the sky. It's not over. She said this was just the beginning. Nira lowered her head beside her, ready, and somewhere deep in the ruins, something else stirred, older than the dragon, older than the elves, waiting for the true war to begin. Dawn came slow over Kiri 7, the dust in the air softening the light into a pale gold that barely touched the ruins. The battlefield lay silent now. No drones, no shouts, no weapons. Fire, only the low hum of ancient tech buried beneath the surface, and the slow breathing of a dragon curled around a lone figure. Lila stood at the center of the ruined arena, her uniform torn, her skin smudged with ash, but her eyes clear and steady around her. The apex warriors lay scattered, not dead, but defeated, their armor cracked, their pride shattered. They had trained for war but never faced something that moved like thought itself. Torn knelt at the edge of the field, his railgun broken at his feet, his hands trembling, not from pain, but from disbelief. He had been the best, the strongest, the heir to a legacy of conquest. And now he could not even stand under Lila's gaze. Kale sat against a twisted bulkhead, his cybernetic arm dark and useless, his usual roar replaced by a hollow silence. Instructor. Voss approached slowly, his boots crunching on broken metal. He stopped a few paces from Lila, his bionic eye flickering as it tried and failed to scan her or the dragon beside her. You broke protocol, he said. Lila looked at him. You armed children with live weapons and called it a test. That was not my decision, but you followed orders. Voss didn't answer. Above them, the command ship hung in orbit. Its weapons powered down, its comms silent. The High Command had watched everything, and now they were afraid. Lila turned to the fallen cadets. You called me Ghost Whisper. Mistake. You thought silence meant weakness, but silence is the space between heartbeats, the moment before the storm. She walked toward Torin. He flinched but did not move away. Wanted proof, she said softly, that I belong. He looked up at her, eyes red with shame. She didn't strike him, didn't gloat, just placed a hand on his shoulder and whispered, You were never my enemy. You were just blind. Then she moved to Kale. You thought strength was noise, she said. But real strength is knowing when not to break something. Kale stared at the ground. One by one she passed among them. Not as a victor, but as a mirror showing them what they refused to see. Nira watched from the edge. Her amber eyes calm, her wings folded like a promise back on the Academy ship. Panic spread through the command deck. Officers argued over comms whether to send Marines to arrest Lila or to flee while they still could. The ship's systems remained locked. Out, no weapons, no thrusters, no escape. The elven glyphs on Carrie 7 had synced with the Academy's core through Lila's blood, and now the entire station answered to something older than human law. May watched from the observation deck, her hands pressed against the glass. She had seen the feed, she had seen Lila move like starlight given form, and she knew the world would never be the same. Meanwhile, deep in the Academy's lower decks, the sealed doors of level -9 began to open on their own, not just one, but dozens, revealing chambers long thought, empty, each one holding relics of a forgotten age, elven armor, weapons, star charts, and more dragons. Not as large as Naira, but awake and waiting. Lila returned to the shuttle pad alone. Naira remained behind, guarding the ruins. Instructor. Voss followed her. What happens now, he asked. Lila looked up at the sky where the command ship hung like a trapped bird. They will call me rogue. They will label me a threat. They will try to erase me from their records, and you go home. Where is that? Where the stars remember my name. Voss hesitated, then removed his insignia and placed it on the ground before her. I trained warriors. I thought I knew strength. But today I saw something else. Lila nodded, but said nothing. The shuttle arrived not by command, but because Lila willed it. The doors opened for her as if they recognized her blood as she stepped inside. She turned one last time to the battlefield, the place where everything changed. Then she spoke loud enough for the comms to catch it and carry it across every channel in human space. The age of human arrogance ends now. The shuttle lifted off, not toward the Academy, but into deep space. On board, the ship systems responded to her touch without codes, without voice commands. The navigation screen lit with coordinates no human had ever seen. Naira's voice came to her through the bond. Not sound but feeling. We are not alone. Lila smiled faintly. No, we never were far away on 100 colony worlds. People paused in their daily lives as strange signals flickered across their networks. No message, just a single image. A girl with silver eyes and a dragon at her back. Some called it a hoax. Others a warning. A few whispered an old name they thought was myth back at the academy. The cadets were evacuated. The station declared compromised. High Command issued a galaxy-wide alert. Cadet Lila Meyer classified as xenological threat level Omega, but in the shadows of shipyards and rebel outposts, others began to prepare because they knew the truth. The quiet ones were waking up, and they were not coming to fight. They were coming to reclaim. Lila sat in the shuttle's cockpit, her hand resting on the console, the glyph on her wrist glowing softly in time. With the ship's pulse, the real war had not even begun. But humanity had just lost its first battle without firing a single shot. The shuttle drifted through the void far beyond the reach of human patrols, its hull dark, its signals silent. Lila sat in the cockpit, her eyes closed, her breathing slow and even. The glyph on her wrist pulsed like a second heartbeat, steady and calm. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant, but inside the ship warmth lingered, the kind that came not from engines, but from presence. Naira's voice brushed against her mind, soft as starlight. We are close. Lila opened her eyes. Ahead in the blackness hung a nebula, not on any human chart, its colors shifting between violet and deep blue like living ink swirling in water. At its center, a rift shimmered faintly. Not a wormhole, not a jump gate, but something older, a tear in the fabric of space stitched. With elven song, "This is it," Lila whispered. The shuttle slowed as it neared the rift. No alarms, no warnings, the ship simply knew this was home. As they passed through the veil, reality bent, light twisted, and time stretched for a breath, then snapped back, emerged into a hidden system. 3 moons orbited a quiet star. Their surfaces covered not in rock but in crystalline forests. Towers of living glass spiraled toward the sky, and rivers of liquid light flowed between them. In the distance, a city floated. Above the largest moon, its spires woven from starlight and memory. This was Aelthar, the last refuge of the elven star singers. Lila had seen it only in dreams passed down through blood and bone. The shuttle landed on a platform of polished obsidian. Smooth as water, figures waited there, tall and slender, their skin pale as moonlight, their eyes glowing silver like Lila's. In moments of power, they wore robes woven from shadow and starlight, and at their lead stood an elder, her hair white as comet dust, her presence heavy with centuries. "You have returned, child." The elder said, her voice like wind through ancient trees. Lila stepped down from the shuttle, Naira landing beside her with a soft thud that made the platform hum. "I did not know I was gone. You were hidden, not lost." The elder turned to the dragon and bowed slightly. "Naira of the first clutch, guardian of the bloodline. You kept her safe." Naira lowered her head in return. "She was never mine to keep, only to guide." The elder smiled. Then looked back at Lila. "The humans have named you a threat. They fear what they cannot control. And can you be controlled?" Lila looked past the city to the edge of the system where human space began its greedy sprawl. No good inside, the city memory flowed. Like air walls showed scenes from the past, not as images but as feelings. Lila walked through halls that remembered her mother, her grandmother, all the way back to the first who fled the Great Burning when humans turned on their elven allies after stealing their star maps and war songs. "You were sent among them." The elder said, to learn their ways, to see if they could change, and they have not. No, they have grown louder, more certain of their right to rule the void. They forget they were once taught to light their fire. Lila touched a wall and felt the echo of 1,000 voices singing the old songs of balance and warning. "What now?" she asked. "Now you choose," the elder said. "You can stay here hidden safe. The rift will hold for another age, or I go back." The elder nodded. "You carry the mark of the Star Singers and the bond with Naira. You are the bridge between what was and what could be. But bridges burn. Sometimes." Yes, Lila looked at Naira. The dragon's amber eyes held no fear, only readiness. "Will not fight them," she said. "Not unless they force my hand, then show them another way. How be being what they cannot ignore." Days passed. Lila trained not with weapons, but with memory. She walked the crystal forests and learned to shape light with her thoughts. She stood in the rivers of starlight and listened to the pulse of the universe. She was not just human, not just elven. She was both. And neither something new, forged in silence and survival. Meanwhile, in human space, the story of Lila Meyer spread. Some called her a monster. Others a savior. Rebels whispered her name in dark corners. Soldiers questioned their orders for the first time. Colonies on the fringe began to vanish, not destroyed, but gone as if they had never been. Human scouts found only empty cities and strange symbols carved into stone. High Command declared martial law, but their fleets hesitated. No one wanted to be the first to face the girl who broke apex warriors without raising her voice. Then came the signal. Not a broadcast, not a threat. Just a single frequency playing an old elven lullaby, the one mothers sang to calm storm. Ships across the rim tuned in, on a mining outpost near the edge of known space. A young engineer named May heard it and smiled. She packed a bag, kissed her sister goodbye, and walked into the desert where a shuttle with black scales waited. On a warship orbiting Mars, a pilot disabled his weapons and jumped to unknown coordinates in academies across the colonies. Cadets began to ask questions no instructor could answer. Lila did not lead an army. She did not declare war. She simply existed. And in doing so, unraveled the certainty of human dominance. One evening, she stood on the edge of Ielthar looking out at the stars. Naira joined her. "They are coming," she said. "Yes, will you be ready?" Lila touched the glyph on her wrist. It glowed brighter than ever. Not with anger, but with purpose. "I was born ready, far away on Ceres." The Galactic War Academy stood empty. Its halls silent, its training fields overgrown with strange silver vines that hummed at night. In the lower decks, the sealed doors remained open, and deep in the ruins of Keres 7, the elven runes still glowed softly, waiting. The age of human arrogance had ended, not with fire, note, with war, but with a quiet cadet who finally spoke, and the universe listened.